A crisis now brewing again at the southern border, and not enough room to keep all the people coming across the border. Remember all the talk about keeping these children in these detention centers. And during the debate, Joe Biden said he was going to shut them down immediately. Well, a question was asked recently of the White House press secretary, Ms. Psaki, about this, and here's what she had to say.
And these HHS facilities, this is one of them you're referring to, we had to expand and open additional facilities because there was not enough space in the existing facilities, and if we were to abide by COVID protocols.
Blaming it on COVID. This is the new global warming. Everything's been blamed on, it used to be global warming, all the way down. They had a list of 1,000 different things that were the consequences or the side effects of global warming. Now it's the coronavirus. So our facilities are filling up, and we have to expand them because of the coronavirus. But that's not the whole truth. The reason we're having to expand capacity is because people are flooding across the border. And members of Congress are speaking out about this. Joining me now to talk more about this, Congressman James Comer. He serves the 1st Congressional District of the Bluegrass State. He is also the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. Congressman Comer, welcome back to the program.
It's great to be back.
So you, along with several of your Republican colleagues, have sent a letter to Joe Biden imploring for him to declare a state of emergency on our border.
That's correct. We've asked him to declare a state of emergency. We've also asked him for a plan, how he's going to deal with this. And thus far, we haven't received anything. You mentioned very well in the opening that candidate Biden said he was going to close those child detention centers now. Well, now, after just 50 days in office and the president declaring to the world that the border is open again like it was during the Obama administration, he's been flooded with illegals. Many of them unaccompanied children, to the point to where we heard from a whistleblower that they are going to ask to expand these child detention centers to house as many as 20,000, to have as many as 20,000 beds. So there's a real problem on the border. The things that Joe Biden said he was going to do and what the reality he's faced with are polar opposites, and we want to know what he's going to do to mitigate this problem.
Now, Congressman, has the administration been forthright with the numbers in terms of how many illegal immigrants are showing up at the border and crossing?
They have not. The numbers that we're trying to pry from different sources within ICE is you had, with respect to unaccompanied children, you had, basically down to virtually none when Trump was president, to where after the election in November, when it became apparent that Biden was probably going to be president, the numbers started going up into the low 40s. Then in January, it's in the around 100, and now last week we're hearing the numbers are in the 3 to 350 a day. And that's not counting the adults that are crossing the border. And they mentioned in the press conference that they had to change it because of COVID protocol. What we've understood is they've already relaxed their social distancing limits because they just don't have the space. They've been flooded with so many. So we have tens of thousands of illegals in detention right now along the border, and we can't get an accurate number. We can't get a number of adults, and we sure can't get a number of children, because that's what they politicized Trump with, was the kids in cages, when that picture that was floated around was actually a picture taken during the Obama administration. So Biden's got a crisis at the border, and we're trying to get an answer from the president as to what his plan is moving forward.
Congressman, I'm sure you've been there many times. I've been to the border after the crisis a couple of years ago, and the Trump administration changed the rules and began enforcing the law, and people had to wait outside the United States before they could apply to come in. And the Border Patrol, those on the border, I thought were pretty free-flowing in information. There was a lot of information that was in the media, and then, of course, when there was no more story, they moved away from it. But it appears that there is a strong effort to consolidate information flow from only the White House, that we're not hearing very much from those on the border. They're apparently under a gag order where they can't talk about this.
You're exactly right. If you'll go back to the first 48 hours of the Biden administration, one of the first executive orders he implemented was an order that essentially tied the hands of ICE and prevented them from being able to disclose information like they were during the Trump administration. So all these actions that Biden took on the first day in office to please his liberal base are coming back to haunt Americans, to the point to where we have as bad of a border crisis as we ever had during the 8 years of the Obama administration. And that's not taken into factor the caravans that are starting to assemble and make their way north from Central America. So this problem is not going to get any better. And it's something that during a pandemic, during a time where we supposedly have high unemployment rate, I think the unemployment rates do a lot to Democrat governors keeping our state shut down. But regardless, we have a high unemployment rate. Well, we've got all these people flowing in to the United States illegally, and it's creating a health crisis. It's going to increase the drug crisis. It's going to lead to more human trafficking. And the president should be leading on this, and unfortunately, he continues to avoid any answers as to what his plan is, and a lot of the liberal media is giving him a free pass on this.
Congressman Comer, I want to go back and make sure I heard you correctly and that our listeners heard you correctly, that what is shaping up at our southern border in terms of the crisis, both I would say the humanitarian crisis and, as you said, the health crisis, eclipses what occurred during the Obama administration?
Well, what we're hearing is that because of the messaging that's been sent out, and you've had all these people that have known that they can't cross the border, they're going to stand a good chance of getting caught during the Trump administration. You have all these people that are making a run for the border now, and we have all these unaccompanied children, a huge increase in unaccompanied children that are starting to cross the border, that it's a bigger problem than any point that I recall during the Obama administration.
Now, those unaccompanied children also can become an issue with human trafficking. We can see these children coming across the border where they're going to be abused. They're going to be, there's a whole host of things that happen as a result of human trafficking, which the Trump administration really clamped down on by securing that southern border.
Exactly. And one of the great untold stories of the policies of the left is the damage that it's done to our children. You just look at all the number of cases of abuse and neglect that have increased over the school closures. And now you have a huge spike in the number of unaccompanied children crossing the border that many of whom will end up in the human trafficking trade. And it's just a terrible policy towards children that we're seeing from the left. And we've raised awareness of this, the Republican leaders that you mentioned in the letter. We want the president to clearly define what his objectives are, what his plan is, how he's going to handle this moving forward. And thus far, we haven't heard anything back.
Congressman Comer, I want to quickly go to the coronavirus relief bill that is going to be coming back over from the Senate to the House, Senate having to vote on it because it no longer includes the $15 minimum wage. And many in the progressive caucus there in the House aren't happy with it. But do you think it stands a chance of failing in the House, or will the progressives, the far left, go with what the Senate's sending over?
Well, the progressives are fuming mad. I'm in Washington right now, and you can see the expression on their faces. But I'm sure that Biden and Pelosi are, as we speak, trying to offer them other pieces of legislation in the future to try to satisfy their socialist side. But I'm afraid at the end of the day, the Democrats will probably band together and pass this awful COVID bill. Well,
with it being nearly $2 trillion, I'm sure they can find something in there for the 100 members of the Progressive Caucus to persuade them, I think we should say. Congressman James Comer, as always, great to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us today.